Mr. Michael Saylor, thank you very much for having us here in Miami.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Same to you. 2026.
2026. Hopefully it's better than 2025.
Bitcoin's 17 years old.
17 years old. It's pretty wild. And last year was kind of disappointing for Bitcoin, I think. It's definitely not what I expected to happen in the year. And for treasury companies as well, especially the back half of the year was really rough. Did you expect that going into 2025?
You know, I don't think it's a disappointing year. The only way in which it's disappointing is the price at the very end of the year. Mm-hmm. Do you know when the all-time high was?
Would it have been about August?
October 6th.
October 6th, okay.
Early October, first week of October. You know how many days it's been since the all-time high of Bitcoin?
I mean, must be like 100 days or something.
Yeah, Grok thinks like 95 days.
Yeah.
Okay, so, by the way, October, the last quarter of the year is October, November, December. Literally at the first week of the last quarter of the year, Bitcoin hit an all-time high. So in what way is it a disappointing year? It's this entire community has very short memory, and whatever happened in the past 5 days dominates the conversation. But if I look at 2025, I think in 2024, we had 30 to 60 companies that had Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And by the end of 2025, we had 200. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the fundamentals look pretty good to me. We hit an all-time high. We added 100 companies with Bitcoin on the balance sheet. I think my company raised something like $25 billion and it all went into Bitcoin. So we bought $25 billion of Bitcoin in 2025. Okay, this entire journey, Danny, started in August of 2020 with a $250 million purchase. Okay, so 10x times 250 is 2.5 billion. We bought 100 times as much Bitcoin in 2025 as we did in August of 2020. And when we bought in August of 2020, that was the greatest amount of capital ever deployed in the Bitcoin network that anybody could remember in the history of the world. So, So 100x more than that strikes me as being a pretty good fundamental progression. You know, if I tick off what happened in 2025, we hit the all-time high. We had 100 Bitcoin companies come online. Fair value accounting for Bitcoin, was instituted at the beginning of the year. It's crippling to the asset class. If you can only lose money, you can never make money. So if we're going to actually institutionalize and commercialize Bitcoin and globalize Bitcoin, if you want everybody on earth to use Bitcoin and every company on earth to use Bitcoin, you had to cure some fundamental problems. One, when we bought Bitcoin in 2020, our insurance company dropped us. We got de-insured. A lot of people got debanked. Mm-hmm. We got, in essence, when the accounting system said it's indefinite and intangible, we can't make money, you got de-profitized, And when we rolled into the first week of 2020, what happened? We got our insurance back. Mm-hmm. For 4 years, I had to underwrite the insurance of the company. The company at one point had 20, 30, $40 billion of assets. We couldn't buy a $40 million insurance policy.
Wow.
Strategy wouldn't exist if I had not personally insured the company with my own personal assets. It wouldn't have happened. So we got our insurance back in 2025. We got our profits back in 2025. We went to fair value accounting, and now it's possible for a company to make money. We had the corporate alternative minimum tax question hanging over our head. Is there going to be an unrealized capital gains tax on public companies holding Bitcoin? That was resolved with positive guidance from the administration in 2025. So we didn't have an unrealized capital gains tax hit us. Then we got legitimized as the primary and the greatest global digital commodity in the world by the administration in 2025. That happened at the White House summit and with a television interview that David Sachs gave. And then we hit an all-time high, and if I look at all those things, and by the way, at the beginning of the year, I couldn't get a nickel loan on $1 billion of Bitcoin collateral. A nickel. So we were debanked. There was no credit. And by the end of the year, the majority of the major banks in the United States are extending credit against IBIT, and like a quarter of them had announced plans to start extending credit against BTC. So I would say we start 2026, and by the way, JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley both talking about buying, selling, handling Bitcoin. So now you've got bankers moving with bank acceptance. You got positive guidance from the Treasury Department for crypto assets on a bank balance sheet. You got a pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto head of the CFTC and Mike Selig. You got a pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin head of the SEC and Paul Atkins. You got a pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin president, cabinet member. You got universal utterance. You also had the commercialization of the Bitcoin derivatives market on the CME. We had all of the handcuffs taken off of IBIT stock options. You also got in-kind create and redemption, where you could swap $1 million of Bitcoin for $1 million of IBIT and vice versa. Swap $1 million of IBIT for $1 million of Bitcoin without a taxable event. So if I had a checklist of all the fundamentals necessary for the asset to be commercialized and globalized and institutionalized, you got everything that you wanted in 2025. And you even got an all-time high. You just didn't get an all-time high on the last day of the year.
然后如果你今天在 YouTube 上看的话，请帮我订阅，然后把小铃铛点开，你就不会错过下一集。谢谢这扩穿这。如果你觉得今天的直播你有学到新的东西，也帮我把影片给分享出去。区块现在的每日直播是每周一、每周三、每周五呢都会讲最新的区块链新闻，然后各种加密货币跟去中心化金融 DeFi。我们明天见，拜拜。